everyone, and welcome back to our podcast series. This is our third one in this series, so if you've missed the first two on sessions and first-time attendees, make sure to go back to our social pages and find the link there. This podcast is going to be all about speaker tips. So here with us today is Bobby Small and Mary Myers, and once again, I'm Savannah Munger. Mary, thank you for joining us today. Can you go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself?
Hi there. Thanks so much for having me. I have been here in the dynamic space for about 5-6 years. Maybe I'm losing math now, since 2018. So however long that's been. And really got started speaking in like 2019 and 2020 and really loved doing that. So yeah, I was happy to share some of the things I've learned the hard way over the years.
Yeah, and you focus on power, right? So what drew you to power? Like what brought you over there? Were you using power before and kind of create, because you own your own business too? So
yeah, exactly. So it's kind of interesting. So when I got into technology, I was an end user in F&O, right? I'm actually a Business Central consultant as well, a Business Central MVP, and so I'm obsessed with extending dynamics with the Power Platform, right? And basically, I just saw this vision from when I used to be an end user and thought that there had to be a better way to do these processes. And then now I have all of the tools that I need, right, to allow people to do these processes better. And I'm so obsessed with it that I had to start my own company and provide the solutions for everyone.
Awesome. Well, happy to have you here, of course. You've been speaking now for a number of years. I also have been a speaker at these conferences for a while. So, again, in a series of things about Summit, we thought a speaker tips and tricks webinar episode would be great. So kind of thinking about, things that I learned in the initial phases of my speaking, just trying to think of the top 3 things that a new speaker or even a veteran speaker, because I've seen veteran speakers struggle at times too, should think about when they're getting ready to go to a conference like this. And I'll just kick it off things for me. And it's probably less important, but I've seen it happen recently. Early on, it was like you had to have every type of connector known to man. It's like you didn't know what kind of connection was going to happen for the projector or anything. So I was prepared with HDMIs and USBs and USB to HDMI and just all these different connections. So I still carry those because I've seen it, like I said, recently at local meetings, people, not having connectors and the facilities not having availability. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's always a great tip. I have to say that I show up and I'm like, and here's my computer, let's plug in. So maybe I should take one of those tips myself. I just assume everyone's going to plug in. I haven't had an issue yet. It's always magically worked, but maybe I should prevent for things when it's not so magic.
We just did a local meeting at New Belgium Brewery, which is great. They're a great Dynamics user. They hadn't used their AV equipment, it seemed like, in a year. They were dusting it off and I think we can connect this somehow. And it turned out one of our speakers didn't have, and they just didn't have they just had one connection type and he did not have that. It was not, so we ended up having to get creative there in the moment. So
there you go. One tip that I have, kind of pigging back off of that a little bit, right? You're talking about making sure that things are connected. I always like to kind of show up to my room ahead of time, whether it be the day of or a few days before or whatever, but check out that space. Try to check out a few sessions that are in that space as well, so that what you may be dealing with, right? And that way kind of provides you a little comfort level. I've been in situations where there was 2 huge poles, right? In my mind, I had this idea of what I was going to do, but then they had these 2 huge columns in this space. And I was like, that's not going to work, right? And so then I knew ahead of time that I had to adjust. I saw where other speakers were speaking and nobody could hear them, and you know what I mean? And so I was like, okay, let me take those adjustments and kind of do that, right? So whether it be connection or just kind of general room setup is something that I think is really helpful as well.
In most conferences, and Summit does too, check it out, they'll have a speaker room where you can go and plug in ahead of time as well. So, but I love that point about, you know what room you're going to be in. Likely it's been assigned already. Just pop in and see what the room looks like. Because if you're a person who likes to move around and all of a sudden the space you were thinking wasn't the space, it definitely could affect your performance and what you're trying to do.
Yeah.
What do you do about your presentation? Like I always, my big concern is like I brought a USB drive. I had an email. I have it on one, I would hate to have it, loaded up locally on the laptop in so many ways, just in case my presentation itself gets, corrupt or damaged.
Bobby, you're making me feel like I should be worried about a lot more things.
This was not supposed to be anxiety inducing.
Yeah, no, I trust the cloud. I'm just gonna be honest, right? Like if my computer breaks or something else, right? Like I know my presentation is going to be in the cloud. I'm trusting that somebody there is going to get that. And then even like in that scenario, like I'm going to have that as like a desktop, right? As far as that goes. As far as like presentation things go, there's always a curse of how you're going to do your demos, right? So I think that's sometimes the thing as far as like presentations is like if something's going to be, if you're doing a live demo, you need to really understand your Wi-Fi needs and constraints and in that room. A lot of times I'm just not even going to trust like the conference like the conference Wi-Fi for my demos. I will just tether to my phone and go from there if I need that. Also, a thing that a lot of people like to do is like pre-record sections of their demo and just kind of like walk or like talk through it in that scenario. So that's kind of, from that perspective, I worry about that aspect of it from like a demo, but like my slideshow, if it's going to show up or not, nope. I have zero concerns. And here's my thing. If I lose my slideshow, y'all are just going to have to hear me talk.
I love it. Extemporaneous.
Yeah, I'm going to draw pictures. We're going to have like stick figures. Maybe we'll do like mimes. I don't know. We'll do something.
I love it. Just so that the key point there is trust the Oompa Loompas in the cloud. They've got you covered. They're up there waiting for it. Yep. They're going to bring your.
Think about it though, right? Because think about it. That's the one thing that I would recommend. Make sure that you have a hard copy of your presentation and make sure that you have a globally accessible cloud, location of it. Because if your device goes down, think about that. There's 100 other different ways that you can get into the cloud. That's the beauty of things being in the cloud. So
because likely even if you're having trouble, you can get it from maybe you borrow a laptop and you've got the cloud. You're loaded on your laptop. Your laptop dies. Your USB drive is corrupted, and all of a sudden you just grab somebody else's laptop and you pull it from the cloud and you're back in business. So that's so much. And again, when I started doing this, the cloud was there was definitely some cloud, but it wasn't quite as accessible and quite as prominent. So
right.
Yeah. I was thinking about when we're talking about speaker tips and tricks, something came up at a conference recently, and it was kind of a reverse thing. And I was going to bring it up as a topic. And it's really from the audience standpoint. A speaker came to me after an event of which I was coordinating and had some concern about another speaker in the audience that had kind of taken over a session. Have you ever had that happen where you're up there speaking and you've got a topic and maybe a question comes up and all of a sudden a speaker, pops in and says, "Oh, I can answer this," and takes over 15 minutes of your session. So just kind of remembering as a speaker, if you're in an audience, be considerate of the other speakers.
Yeah. So, I mean, I definitely had it happen. Honestly, I will say on both ends. But let me share a little bit there, right? So I had kind of, honestly, I think in the same conference, I had somebody that was like kind of combative in the audience, like sit there and like try to like argue with me and like so what you're saying is like Power Automate isn't that good, and I'm like, that's not what I'm saying at all, and so it was like kind of distracting like in that perspective. So I would say like don't be like, ask one question, like if it's an ongoing conversation, that's what after the session is for, like regroup afterwards. I'm sure your question is really great, but like that it's just like respectful, right? And also I will say that like as the speaker, if you're that person and somebody's doing that to you and you are mortified, just relax. Just know that everyone else in that room sees that same thing about that person. You are not the only one that thinks, oh my gosh, this is crazy, right? Like everyone else is like, what is that person doing to that? You know what I mean? And so like just know like you're not alone if that happens to you and somebody's like in that situation, because it definitely happens.
Yep.
Right.
I would say, and also be bold, and maybe, if you feel comfortable, say, hey, your opinion, it sounds like you've got some great opinions on this. I'd love to hear them. I'm sure we'd all, but let's maybe take it after the, after at the medic desk, or, at a networking event. We'd love to hear more about this, but, kind of, we have to move on now. Kind of, we parking lot that.
I have since then, I have trained myself to work more towards just taking questions at the end, right? I used to try to take them like in between, but since then I have learned to try to, again, like you say, like control your audience a little bit more. Like, we'll take questions at the end. Thanks. I see you. We'll get it back,
Yeah. You're being respectful, but saying, hey, we're we got a lot to get through. We're really excited to get this content out to you, and then we'll have time for questions at the end. So definitely keep them going.
Exactly. So I've seen that happen. And then on the other side, I have been in a session, where I'll go and like support my friends or support other community members and things like that, right? And I think that sometimes people can take that wrong. Like sometimes I think maybe people find that a little bit intimidating, right? Like if we didn't say that we had egos and pride in this community, we'd be liars, right? Like that's just point blank. So we all feel like a certain way, but I'll still go and like support my friends and stuff like that. And because that's what we should do. And I had a situation where one of my colleagues was somebody asked them a question and they didn't really know, right? But I could see like they kind of like looked at me, right? And I felt like they were like, help. And so I started talking. And I don't shut up, y'all. And so then I had to like stop. And then but it happened like a few times. And then she'd like look at me, and I was like, afterwards, I just waited till everyone was there, and like I went up to her and I was like, I'm so sorry. Like, I hope that you don't find it like, and she was like, thank you so much. She was like, no, like I'm so thankful that you did that. Right. So I think that maybe sometimes, but I read a room. I don't know. I don't know if it's good advice or not, but I'm just kind of sharing that like I've been on both sides of things. So maybe maybe to say that somebody that's saying something doesn't have ill intent either. Right.
Yep. No, I think sometimes it isn't. Sometimes they're trying to be helpful. Sometimes people are bullish, and sometimes they think, oh, I can help in this situation, not realizing they could be derailing a speaker's flow and cadence, for a certain time. Yeah. What about the first time you said, what about the first time you did the speaking? How was that? You said, you were talking offline that it was nervous. You're kind of nervous still, but what was the first time speaking like?
So the first time speaking, I was very nervous. It was at a UG event. Edit that out. So I was at a UG. I was going to speak at a UG event up in Charlotte, and I really wanted to get into speaking. So I was nervous though, because this was kind of like my first new thing. And I remember listening to a podcast on the way up there. It was Mark Smith's podcast, and it was one where he was featuring Lucy Bourne, and she's like an amazing like pre-sales person. Well, she's a lot more than that now. Gosh, this was several years ago. But back then she was talking about how like whenever she goes into like a speaking engagement or like a pre-sales scenario, she just dives right into it, right? And it's just like all or nothing. Mm-hmm. And I have very much of like this go big or go home type of like mantra as well. So I just remember like listening to that, like even though I was like really nervous. And so I kind of still hold that opinion to this day, right? I still get super nervous before most of my presentations. One time I walked into a conference or like a section, and there was already like 200 people in there, and I like walked out and I called my best friend, and I was like freaking out, and she's like, okay, now you're good and you have to get back in there. So that's exactly what I did, right? So I guess that's kind of how my first engagement went, was like nervous, but I knew that I would have to do it and I would feel awesome afterwards. And that's still how I roll. So
yeah, that's a great mindset to have, honestly. And yeah, like we were talking before, it's very easy to get nervous, but as long as you have some confidence going into it, once you get there, all things will be well.
Exactly.
What are kind of like your viewpoints, like being an audience member? Like, what are you looking for, like on the opposite end of being a speaker?
So for me, I'm looking for somebody that's doing more than just reading words off of a slide to me, honestly. I I'm a very visual person, so I like demonstrations or somebody like really explaining something to me in non-technical terms.
Yeah.
So, those are things that I'm looking for from a speaker, from an audience perspective. Is that type of, scenarios, is like, what am I like, just like this engaging type of content, right? Like, can you hold my opinion, or like, not opinion, attention. There we go. Can you hold my attention? Even in a conversation, right? Like, if I can go into a session and not know anything about it, but if there's a good speaker, right, that like has a good attention getter, I mean, that's the key here, right? For speaker tips and tricks, like, have a great opener, right? Have like this attention opener, whether it be a joke, a story, something that you can relate to your audience, no matter what your session is. You'll grab them in the first 30 seconds. It's on you to keep them from there, right? But the hardest thing to do is like to get their attention to begin with. So that's what I'm always looking for.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Even when Bobby and I kind of started this podcast, he was trying to give me some pointers, and he was saying, like, the beginning and end, you got to start strong and finish strong. So that's some great advice to have as well.
I had a manager. Well, he was more than a manager. He's a really good mentor. Rob Pope, he's over at PAX 8 now, but one of my first like speaking presentations that I did in like a really, really big setting was at EMEA over in Milan. And I was really nervous then, and he knew I was really nervous. But what he made me practice, he was like, look, we're going to go into the room ahead of time. And he made me practice like my first 2 minutes. The first 30 seconds, he said, are so important. You have to come out there and just bellow out whatever it is. That first utterance of words has to be full of confidence. You just have to be boom and spot on. And he said, I don't care what the rest of the presentation looks like, right? I trust you on that part, but like, we have to focus in on this part. And it was amazing advice, right? And so that's what I do to this day.
The two things that I lean on: number one, if you know your material, you're going to be fine. Lean back on that material. And two, the audience is always with you. Yeah. I mean, unless you're a stand-up comic. If you're a stand-up comic, the audience is probably always against you unless you're famous. But right. if you know your material, you're going to be fine. Lean on that material. You know your stuff. Get past, like you said, come out. Like if you come out blasting in 30 seconds and you feel that initial burst of confidence, you're going to fall quickly back on what you're doing there, what you know. So if you've got that, when you try to script it out too much, it can be a problem. Just
right.
Have your outline, be prepared. You know what you know. And then, but again, the audience is there for you. They want you to succeed. They want you to do well. So they're, that just keep that in mind, because that was a big, huge bump for me in public speaking.
One thing I just kind of want to add here too, I know we're kind of wrapping up, but as far as like speaking goes in our presentations and confidence in order, right? Versus, and intros and outros. A lot of people will do your demos at the end, right? In my opinion, you typically see let's talk some, and then we do demos at the end. Don't worry about if your approach is different. Again, if you are most comfortable in your demo, right? Like you excel in like the driving of that part, that scares some people, right? But if that's where you're most confident and the talking scares you, put your demo first, right? So just, again, play to your strengths. Have a super strong opener. Then if you are most comfortable with presenting or demoing, that's the next part that you should have in your presentation, because after that, you're ready to go. Anything could happen. The world could follow you. Like, that's cute. You've got a joke at this point, right? Like Bobby said, the audience is there for you. At that point, the audience is in your hand. If something goes wrong, you'll catch up and the end is near. And then you can be like, well, that was great. And then you get off stage anyway. So.
And speaking of speaking, I know I've got a couple of sessions. So do you. I'm going to just quickly click these across the bottom so folks can know where to find you at Summit. We'll both be there. You can see you're all Tuesday. I couldn't even tell you what mine are yet. I'll probably have to release them at some point, but you've got one on Tuesday at 2:30 or 1:30.
1:30. Yep. 1:30 to 2:30. Then I have my like little hour debrief break, and then I'll be ready to go again at 3:30 to 3:55. So really looking forward to that.
And you were telling us you have stickers. And what about, we didn't get to touch on this, and we got to, just as the last final before Savannah wraps this up, any fun outfits? I know.
I do. I always have a fun outfit.
I
That is
know.
actually an underrated tip that I think everyone should know is that, like, don't think that the outfit doesn't matter. And it doesn't mean that your outfit has to be a costume or anything like that, but what your outfit should be is something that makes you feel great and amazing. And you know, some people walk around wearing tiaras or superhero costumes for fun, and if that's what does it for you, then that's what you should do, right? But I think that, like, honestly, the way that you find confidence isn't dressing up like someone else or trying to be anyone else, right? Like, your outfit, your whatever that it is, should be unapologetically you, right? You are never going to be a great presenter of anyone else, but you can always be the best version of yourself.
You bet. No, and like you said, it's impactful. I'm still known as I haven't worn a bow tie in a while, but people will still come up and say, "Where's your bow tie? You're the bow tie guy," or whatever. Because at that time, early on, I loved wearing bow ties, and like you said, it made me feel good. That was part of my outfit at the time, and so like you said, it makes an impact. And to your point, whatever makes you feel good is going to increase your confidence along the way.
Exactly.
I love
thanks,
that.
Mary. Yeah, appreciate having you here, Savannah. Any last words before we head off?
No, I love that. Speaking of, I was just actually searching on Amazon last night for some purple pants to get in the spirit of Summit and with our booth and everything.
We're really leaning into our purple branding, trying to become the purple company. So you'll see a lot of purple at Summit, Mary.
You know what? Purple and pink coordinate well together, though.
I love it. Yep.
Yeah, we'll have to get you guys some of my stickers while we're out there. And if anyone else wants some stickers, I'll be around. Check me out in my sessions. I'll be working with TechFluent as well, so you'll see me in the sponsor area and with some of the students there as well. So
great.
Awesome. Well, great. Yeah, Mary, thank you so much for joining us. Everyone else, make sure to check out Mary's sessions on Tuesday at Summit. And we look forward. Oh, and if you haven't registered yet, make sure to do so for Summit and use our promo code ELLIPSE10 for 10% off your registration price. We look forward to chatting with you guys again. Thank you.
Take care. Bye. Thanks, Mary. Thanks, Savannah.